don't know if these are on or not. Yeah, they are. I want to welcome everybody this morning to the Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting of April 11th, 2024. And I would remind everybody, please silence your phones if you could. And please note that this meeting is being broadcast, and a video of the meeting will be available after the meeting is concluded on the county's website. At this time, I'd ask everybody to rise for the invocation, followed by the pledge.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence, and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, could I please have the roll call?
City Commissioner Scott Black, Councilman Lance Smith,
Here.
Mayor John Eric Hoover,
Here.
Commissioner Ronald E. Oakley,
Here.
Commissioner Seth Waitman,
Present.
Commissioner Catherine Sparky,
Here.
Commissioner Gary Bradford, Commissioner Jack Mariano,
Here.
Chairman Matt Murphy.
And I probably do need to just some clarification. Do we need to go ahead and vote that I will run the meeting? Okay.
Yeah, motion to approve Lance Smith or run the chair.
Second. I have a motion and a second for myself to run the chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, too. All right, we're calling for public comment at this time. Meeting attendees may provide public comment to the MPO board regarding MPO and Pasco County transportation-related issues or concern. Comments are limited to 3 minutes in length. And if you are speaking, please give your name, address, the agenda item number, and an agenda item title. Then the 3-minute time will start. Do we have anybody here that signed up to speak? Madam Clerk? No? Anybody here care to speak? All right. If not, we're going to move on to the action items. And I apologize because okay. Thank you. It's been a while. Sorry. Oh, I guess we have the approval of the minutes, prior minutes.
Move approval. Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval of the prior minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have the MPO Advisory Committee reports. Thanks. Citizens Advisory Committee, Johnny?
Thank you. Good morning. The CAC met at the regularly scheduled meeting on April 3rd at the Starkey Ranch Library. The committee reviewed and recommended for approval all of the action items that you are going to review today. And I want to take a minute to highlight a request from the CAC at the last meeting. So they requested a crash dashboard that we are going to begin to review at each CAC meeting. We're not going to necessarily go in depth into the crashes, but we are going to look at the emphasis areas that are causing the crashes, and also just get a general idea of what the locations are. This has been a very engaged group, and I appreciate their involvement, and I also appreciate them holding the MPO staff and all of the transportation planning professionals accountable for safety. So I thought that was a really good idea by them, and I appreciate their engagement. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You know, we talk about looking into things to try to prevent things from happening. Did we ever get into anything about looking at the pedestrian fatalities as far as drug testing the people that were being run over, or issues with that at all?
Well, because that's not part of the statute, you know, we can continue to look at that, but because that is not in Florida statute, that drug tests are mandatory, we're limited in the information that we can, that we can find because of that. There's also HIPAA concerns, if we were to go to hospitals. So we're continuing to see how we can address that, but we're limited in what we can do based on Florida statute.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we appreciate the report, Johnny.
Thank you.
TAC report by Clay Watkins.
Good morning, Board. Excuse me. Good morning, Chairman. We also had voted on the same board meetings or the items that you will receive today. And all of them were approved unanimously. The only question we had, there was some question and some definition in the prioritization regarding more of a definition of what is an activity center. So other than that, we approved everything and went through.
Okay. Any questions? If not, thank you again, Clay, for the report. Thank you for coming today, too. The BPAC, Mr. Brian Michaels.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Brian Michaels, BPAC. So we also approved all the action items. 3 items that I have to highlight was the improvable methodology for the ranking of projects for next year. We have a consulting team that's going to make the data more accurate to make the prioritization of projects higher and better or more accurate. The second item was the 2050 long-range plan. Showed some highlights where people want to bike more and they want to walk more. So the good news is we're going to have some new trails that are coming to Pasco County. And the last item I have for you is a safety message. Unfortunately, in Pasco County, we got the numbers for last year. 92 people died between cars, motorcycles, and pedestrians. The unfortunate thing is 30% of the fatalities were pedestrians.
Wow.
So I'd like to remind everybody to stop for pedestrians, especially in crosswalks and at signalized intersections.
We had a fatality yesterday on 54 with a motorcycle and a car in front of Starkey Ranch.
And I appreciate the reminder because we do need to look for the pedestrians for sure.
Yeah, state law requires every signalized intersections for cars to stop and remain stopped for people to cross the roadways. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
In your discussion with the methodology prioritizations, one of the things on there we're going to talk about, I'm just wondering if you guys talked about it. It said, remove project longevity bonus. And I'll say on the west side, we've had many sidewalks that sat for many years. Some of them are getting done now. Any talk about, conversation about that one particular part of the item?
I know we have gaps that are going to be filled by FDOT. I'm not sure how that are those county roads you're talking about?
Longevity bonuses for all projects, I guess.
We'll have a presentation on it.
I know, if they looked at it, I want to know what, I want to know what BPAC thought about it.
No, there wasn't any discussion on that.
I didn't discuss.
No.
Okay.
Other meeting.
We can provide the minutes for you for the BPAC if you want to see that.
Okay. Just got thought too about as far as pedestrian safety, et cetera. Maybe what might be helpful if your HIPAA requirements don't let you do the testing, let's go see if we can find addresses. Because if we find out these people were living along 19 or a PO box, that might be an indicator of an issue.
Just real quick, and we can bring that in a June meeting, we can have that discussion. We are looking at some options of delving a little deeper into pedestrian, and that is a statewide initiative, not only a county initiative as well. And I'm not going to get into that because we'll talk more about crash reports at a later date and look at that specifically. FHP is taking a little bit more look with the drug and alcohol testing, but again, the Florida statute for serious injury and or fatality does not require it.
No, and I can appreciate that, and maybe it's going to take a while to change that legislation, but as far as getting information, I mean, you just hate to see US 19 or even Pasco County being riddled with bad statistics when it's really not our fault other than people that are not in control of themselves.
That was 92 fatalities last year, and 30% pedestrians were not only 19. So we need to look at them equally across the board, and that's what our safety action plan will do.
Yeah, and I think you'll find most of your red dots where the dangers are along 19, though.
They're all over,
Oh, I know
unfortunately,
they're all
in
over.
the county. One life is one too many, so, thank you.
Now, hang on, Tina, just a second. Commissioner, go
Thank
ahead.
you, Chair. Is there a way to find the breakdown of if they were just pedestrian or recreational users that got hit or killed?
No, and I think Commissioner Mariano kind of mentioned something. We're going to start, one of the things I learned at the Lifesaver Conference this past weekend in Denver, which is the best of the best in the country, is that trying to find out where people live will help with some of that, trying to figure out what's going on. You know, we have to just dive in really deeper into those stats. And it's only as good as that crash report that we can look at. We're going to start looking at some other ways. We have someone from Bayonet Trauma Center that's helping us look at the follow-up with some of these folks, because it's not only the fatalities, lots of serious injuries as well when it comes to pedestrian. We're going to see if we can dive in a little bit deeper, and one of the ways is seeing where they live might help with some of that information that you're talking about.
I think it'd be important for us to know and have on the record that if it's a recreational user, and those are way less, that people know they can come to Pasco and ride their bike and hike and walk safely, and that if the majority of those are just folks who aren't paying attention and not doing recreational things, that we know the difference between.
That question comes up quite often when cyclists are fatality, but a lot of cyclists, not only recreational, I know as me as a cyclist, I'll use it as like a dual, triple purpose. I'm exercising, but I'm going to go get my groceries. So sometimes that's a really tough one to kind of dial down, but we are going to look at some different ways to kind of answer that question as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Anything else? All right. And Brian, thank you for the report. Thank you for coming this morning, too. All right, we'll move to the action items. We have 5 action items on the regular agenda and 1 action item on the addendum agenda. All right, and the first action item is the Florida DOT and Pasco MPO Joint Certification Report. I think Johnny's going to present this for us.
Good morning again. Federal guidelines require that the Florida Department of Transportation and the Pasco MPO conduct a joint certification review to assess the MPO's compliance with federal transportation planning processes and applicable state laws. The joint cert covers several subjects pertaining to the transportation planning process, including topics such as finances and invoicing, Title VI and Americans with Disabilities Act compliance, and also just general contract and procurement processes. The annual joint certification this year was conducted on January 31st of 2024. The FDOT found the Pasco MPO to be in compliance with all federal and state guidelines for the transportation planning process. And they also identified 7 notable achievements for the MPO and also 3 recommended actions. Also, another important component of the joint certification is a assignment of a risk rating. And for the 2nd consecutive year, the Pasco MPO has been assigned a risk rating of low. So that's good, and that's in large part to the efforts of Lori Shadegger, who is the MPO's business compliance and contracts manager. Are there any questions or comments about the joint cert?
Chairman, or Council?
Yes, I was reading it, and it said one of the recommendations was engaging the public more. I was wondering what other places do to engage the public more. I mean, what are we missing?
I believe some of the recommendations are just general that they provide to all the MPOs. I'm not sure if that's, specific to something we're not doing. I think that's just a general recommendation to always consider public involvement in everything we do.
Okay.
Any comments or anything? Okay. But that is something that we consider, our public requests for comment, our public meeting notices, in all of our plans and all of our amendments and everything we do. So that is something that we comply with, but it's something that we always need to be thinking about too. How can we engage the public better and often?
Well, if anyone has seen some great examples around the country, we're all ears, right?
Right.
We can ask at NACO, Jack, maybe what some of the other counties do.
Move approval?
Second.
Have a motion for approval on this item and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Johnny. All right, the Lori's going to present the Consolidated Planning Grant deobligation.
Yes, I am requesting approval to deobligate $1,020,000 from our fiscal year 23-24 Consolidated Planning Grant, and I'm going to be moving it to our new year 25-26 Consolidated Planning Grant.
Question.
Yes.
So when I hear the term deobligate, that's like a clawback. So are we losing money or
No.
you're just moving
I am
money?
moving it to the first year of the new contract. That way we can expend it our first year versus waiting until the contract closes and then they move all that fund to the second year
Okay,
of the new contract.
okay. Move to approve?
Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval of this item. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Lori.
Perfect.
All right, and Lori's going to stay right up there and give us the United
Yes.
Planning Work Program deobligation amendment. Is that-
Right. Due to me changing the contract of our funds, I have to now amend our UPWP, our Unified Planning Work Program. So I updated that, and I'm looking for your approval.
All right.
Approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Lori. All right, the draft fiscal years 2024-25, UPWUP. UPWUP, right?
Yes.
That's what y'all call it, right?
Yeah,
Tonight.
we said the UP.
It will now.
UPWP, whatever you want to call it. Good morning, Board. Before I start with my item, I just wanted to bring to light that we have been doing more outreach than we ever done at this MPO. Thanks to the help of Tina, Johnny, Lori, and our staff. We've been going out, doing helmet fittings, talking with the community, especially during our long-range transportation plan. We've done several outreaches. We've actually done an outreach to the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board. That's within looking at our disadvantaged citizens. So we are working on that element. We want to be shining brighter than ever. And actually, we're actually telling our narrative to the community and putting it on social media. So a lot of times if you're scrolling, you'll see that with the things that we're doing, and we plan on doing even more outreach in this current UPWP that we have, and the next UPWP that we have coming up. And also with the deobligation, I just wanted to highlight last year, we had some staff changes. We had a little late start with our GPC. So some of that money we had, we were able to just roll it into that, like Laura was saying, into that first year. So we don't want to lose money in it, the MPO, we never do. So we put it in the first year so we're able to use it. And so now moving on to my agenda item, which is highlighting the draft Unified Planning Work Program for fiscal year 24 to 26. That is our budget that we are working with. We have a lot of work in there to do over the next 2 years. So if you look through it, we have a lot of things we're trying to do. Freight plan, transportation systems management operation plan. We're highlighting, again, some of that, more of that outreach. We have a lot of things that we're looking forward to doing, some corridor studies, feasibility studies. So there's a lot of work to be done over the next 2 years. So this is our rough draft. Right now, we're waiting on comment from FHWA and FDOT so we can move forward and plan our final adoption for May 9th. Any questions?
Any questions for tonight?
No, but I will not be here May 9th. I'll be at my NACO Board of Directors meeting.
Okay, noted.
If not, seek a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval of this item. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, the prioritization methodology, Johnny?
Thank you. So in February of 2022, the Pasco MPO Board adopted the MPO's first project prioritization methodology as a method to score and prioritize projects for inclusion on the MPO's list of project priorities, and we refer to that as the LOP. So if you hear LOP, that's what that is. At that time, the vision for the prioritization process that it would undergo continual review, especially for the methodology and the criteria. And that was important because we want to make sure that the prioritization process is representing current conditions in Pasco. The MPO staff used the current methodology to score and rank projects for the lot in 2022 and 2023. And this year, the staff took the opportunity to review our methodology and data sources. And we've also enlisted the help of one of our planning consultants, Urban SDK. And actual Andrew Lauder and Zach Funkhauser are here from Urban SDK. They have worked on similar projects for other MPOs, so we feel very comfortable working with them on this endeavor. So now we're actually going to get into the review. The main goal of the review is to simplify the process. There's been a lot of staff resources that have been previously used, so the goal is to simplify the process, update the data sources, and also automate the process. And it's just a method of modernizing our scoring process. So we're going to get into some of the actual review that we conducted and some of the proposed changes to the methodology. Some of the scoring criteria for safety and congestion, we are proposing to update that criteria. When we were scoring projects for the last 2 years, what we found was that projects that were not constructed, that did not have roadway yet on the ground, were not being put on an even footing with projects that existed. So, and we did anticipate this, and that was part of our review. So currently, right now, when we are scoring projects, we look at a project segment that is being scored, and we compare the safety and congestion data to a parallel project. And what we found was that scoring based on the parallel project was not accurately reflecting safety and congestion necessarily. So we are going to propose to score those projects based on an overall area where the project is, and that would be the census tract. So that was one of the proposed changes. We've also enhanced all of the criteria data sources. So when we score a project, we had references to PDF maps. So you would find your project location. For some of the criteria, we would say here is a PDF map of a specific criteria, and you would score based on that. So we have replaced all of the references to PDF maps with georeferenced GIS data now. And that's the way that we can automate the scoring process. We've also updated some of the criteria data, and a good example of that is the level of service data. In our current methodology, we are using level of service data that was created during Mobility 2045, which is 2018 data. And I think everybody would say now that the traffic on the roads is not reflective of 2018. So now we're using current data that has been provided to us by Traffic Operations Division. So we appreciate that. So now we're using current level of service data. And finally, we are proposing to simplify the project scoring criteria in 2 ways. Before project readiness was scored in multiple ways, we're going to propose to score that based on the farthest a project has progressed in the phases of planning and implementation. We are also proposing to remove the project longevity bonus. And I know Commissioner Mariano, you had a question about that earlier. What we found, basically 2 issues that we found. Some of these projects have been on the list for so long, just because they're large projects, that the bonus was not having the intended and anticipated effect of separating the projects. Just like I said, because some of them are already on the list so long because they're large projects. Secondly, we have been encouraged by the DOT to try to find ways to put our smaller cost local projects in better position for funding. And we did find that the longevity bonus was hurting smaller projects. So we feel like that could be hurting us for smaller pots of money that the DOT may find during the year. So we want to put our low-cost projects, we want to rank those sufficiently where if they come to us and say, we've got some extra money, what kind of low-cost project would you like, that puts those projects in a better light?
What's considered low cost?
Well, you know, we talked about I would say, we're saying probably a couple million and below. So
Let our public hear that.
that, right, so we're talking about 5 million and below.
Okay.
And so, you know, some of those, we have such large projects on our list. You know, a lot of our projects are tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, 5441, for example. And we need to better reflect our smaller local priority projects on the list. And we did feel like that project readiness, or the project longevity bonus was hurting some of those smaller local projects that we want to see get funded. And that's pretty much
As
it.
long as,
Hold
as
on,
long
Jim.
as you don't mess with Leonard's sidewalk.
Right, it's
Been at it for,
Johnny, Commissioner Mariano has a question.
Yeah, I mean, when the government's set up here, we got 5 county commissioners, each equally proportioned around the whole county as far as population goes. When you get a high-growth area coming in that can force these high congestion areas, et cetera, a lot of them are going to be funded with different monies coming in from the project, from impact fees, et cetera. What happens is you leave, let's say, already developed areas that maybe didn't get done and didn't have the terms in it to go, but with all the monies that come in for road improvements, it's the only way they're going to get done. So this longevity bonus is really taken like a project like a Ranch Road sidewalk, been sitting for 20 years, Jasmine, actually get done quicker for prioritization. Not sure exactly why it moves up so quick, but Zimmerman's been sitting there for a long time. That's finally coming together. So, and there's other projects that can be out there that just don't get done. Leonard Roads could be another one. Obviously, it's being done. So that longevity bonus was designed for the projects that get left behind that don't score as high for the variety of other reasons. And when we had this criteria come out probably 4 or 5 years ago, I objected to it then for the same reasons. And now you're even taking the bonus out, which didn't seem to have the same effect. So if there's a way to change how the selection can be made because of low-cost projects to high-cost projects, I suggest you change that. But that longevity bonus as a project that's been left behind was the design to give it a chance to leapfrog ahead on something equal.
Okay, well, I just want to make one clarification. So sidewalks are not used. This process is for roadway projects and mixed-use path projects also?
Okay.
So sidewalks are not, well, I just want to clarify that.
So let me say
Okay.
sidewalks, I mean trails, et cetera, that
Okay,
could be along.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clarification. So we did use this for 2 years, and that's what we're proposing, because we did see that the anticipated effects were not being realized in the list. But that doesn't mean we can't come up with another way to find the solutions for those projects that you say have been left behind. We can certainly try to do that also. We just didn't see the effects of the longevity bonus when we had talked about this originally.
And you may not see it for your congestion numbers or other things, but as far as I'll just talk trails for a second. And yesterday at the Board of County Commissioners, we approved 2 projects. One was our sidewalk and Kitten Trail that got left behind is getting done. We have another project that we just funded through the Penny for Pasco for a trail along 5A, which actually connects a sidewalk, which wasn't included either. But thank you, Commissioners, for making sure that happened this time to get it done so it's completed. It'll help some affordable housing that's been trying to come in for years down the road. That road's going to connect all the way up to 19, and there's another connection supposedly going up from Old Dixie, whatever. You don't see any issues with it now, but if SunWest keeps growing and more things come up and down the coast, as things may come in and grow, you're going to find some issues out there that you're not going to like the results of. And there's chances to work with that too. So I'm just not sure if this methodology is taking everything into account that should be taken into account. And again, that longevity bonus and, the readiness project, I'm not sure if this is going to be the best step for projects on the west side that have been sitting for a while.
So I think as MPO, when we were looking at this overall, we wanted to automate and bring our project prioritization process up to a different level with our rest of our TMA. That was our first inkling for this project. And secondly, when we were actually going through the ranking process, we were noticing, like Johnny said, some of the criteria that we previously used was not impacting the list, and we were looking at it going, well, why is that kind of happening? We're still going through and we're working through some of those, like, we're still looking at it and reviewing it and going, okay, working with Urban SDK to really look at it and go, is this exactly what we're seeing and thinking? The older projects that you're still discussing, some of those projects do have funding on it. So remember, the other criteria that we left on here is to support long-term projects and newer projects coming in. So leaving off the one criteria of longevity, I think it's still going to, it will be okay. And the current criteria that we left, it supports the project because now those other projects are flowing to the top. Remember, we get projects programmed every year. Projects will move up, and some of those projects that are low-hanging fruit that we can do quicker, it will make the list go quicker, and then we could figure out the rest of the unfunded projects. Remember, it's not funded till it goes into construction. So we're trying to figure out more of a feeder. So when we come back to you year after year, things aren't just sitting on the list and not going anywhere. We want this list to be dynamic, and we want it to move through a lot quicker, like some of our counterparts with Board Pinellas and Plan Hillsborough. And I think that's what we're aiming for here is so you see what you're voting on, you see what you're saying, okay, this is what we're going for, and you can see the projects actually moving. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Your projects will not be left in the dust, trust me.
Well, I'm gonna go two things that have happened that we actually took care of. One of them was State Road 56 coming along. That was gonna be a 4-lane project all the way through, and all of a sudden, one day it comes before this MPO, and all of a sudden it switched to 2 lanes. And we got that switched. We took a lot of great cooperation with DOT, developers, landowners, et cetera, and we switched that over to 4 lanes like it should have been, and much better investment for the public as well. The other one, which we may talk about a little bit later on, been working very closely with Hernando County on County Line Road. Doesn't affect every other commissioner's district here, maybe it touches Commissioner Oakley a little bit, but that project's been lingering, and never got ranked because other things just kept moving up past it. So maybe there's a way to shorten those big projects to smaller segments if need be. Maybe that's an approach, but again, it's something that this board can make decisions to what's going to go on, but it just makes it harder when the thing's been sitting and is not a priority for some latest push.
Right, and I don't want you to have the perception that the bigger projects are just going to be like further behind. I don't want that to happen. The bigger projects need to happen like 5441. I'll be coming to you in a moment about 52, getting some support there with FDOT for a discretionary grant. So we are still focusing on the bigger projects, but like I said, we want the list to move along and not be stagnant. I've been here since 2018, and some of those projects have been on the list, and I'm like, we haven't funded this yet. So I know you want to see it move, we want to see it move, FDOT, federal, everybody wants to see this list moving. So I think this, by making the process more dynamic and having criteria, and as we go, we can change criteria, we can update, but we want to make sure that we're doing this at the most optimal level possible.
Commissioner Oakley.
Yeah, I just want to add something on 56. When we were doing that, that was really planned just to be 2 lanes. I went to Commissioner Schrader at the time before I was elected and said, "You want to be on the side of the citizens?" And he said, "Yeah, what do you mean?" And I said, "Make sure that's a 4-lane project rather than a 2-lane, because if we'd have done 2-lane back when we did 56, and that was our first 4-lane road all the way across the county, we would be jammed up worse than we are, and we're jammed up now, and it's 4-lane. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of traffic going on that road, and if we'd have done it like the push of 2-lane, and they hadn't stepped out and worked with the property owners and get things done, that would really have been a headache for us right now, because that money doesn't come along that often to be able to push a project, further through. So, but the project you got coming for us with the FDOT support, we got a letter off yesterday in support of that from the Board of County Commissioners. So,
right. And I'll be coming to each of you with the draft priority list in the next few weeks. so we can review. So it won't be any surprises. We will sit.
How old are these small projects that get held up? How long do we carry those on the list?
Some of those projects have been on the list since, like I said, I came in 2018 and before that. I can go back to the 2013-14 list of priority projects and still see some of the same projects. So they've been on there quite a long time.
How small are they, or money-wise, how small?
Well, I can't tell you off the top of my head because now we're talking about inflation.
But I mean, they're
It's a lot
less than
easier.
$5 million?
Yeah,
or-
probably 5 to 10 million, somewhere in there now.
Yeah.
You know, and tonight, if we can, just like you said, if we would have done some of the smaller projects 10 years ago, how much less would they have cost?
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
That's true.
so, I mean, so your methodology, you're saying we'll be able to get these things done quicker, the smaller projects. And the fear that I have, and also I hear, is we don't want to leave these projects that have been there so long in the dust, but you're saying they'll get done, is what
Correct.
I'm hearing.
That's what we're trying to do, is expedite the process and not let all these projects linger for all this time, and put funding where it needs to go and move these projects up and then get them funded. That's ultimately the goal, is to move them through the queue. That is what we're trying to do, and clean up the priority list the best that we can, move forward, and then get some newer, fresh projects on there and continue on with project prioritization.
So I have an idea. If you stick with the same criteria, you got, I'll just put a caveat in to ask.
Okay.
For all these projects, go find out when they were first put on the list, and always have that date next to them. So at least when we're looking at it, we'll know how long that thing's been sitting. There won't be any guesswork.
Right.
So even if you don't change the criteria, just put it in there so we can see what it was, so we can make some decisions. Like, I'll go back to that 56. That was designed that was supposed to be 4 lanes from the get-go. It got shifted to 2 lanes, and we had to go make sure on this MPO to change that. And Lentz, I think, made the second of the motion to push that along.
Right.
And that was a 5-4 vote.
And I know the city actually did a little bit of an obligation on our part, because we knew it was important, so, and it was. I mean, the one thing that is amazing to me is some of the things that are on there. When I first got on here, I thought, well, we'll never need that. Now, we need it. We needed it 2 years
past
ago.
needing
It's
it.
amazing. It's amazing to me. So when I see y'all's projection, I look at it, I don't scoff at it like I did. And I'm not saying, because there was a 3-lane project, or another lane for 301, and I thought at the time, well, we'll never need that, but we need it.
We need
you know,
it.
We need it,
Yes.
so.
Yes.
But I'm all for, if we can get these things done.
Right.
Let's do them, because it's painful how long some of the things take, you know.
Well, I'll give you an example of what we need, and there's 2 of them we need. We need 4-lane of 301 to the county line coming into Hillsborough. We need that 4-lane. But we also need the change of the 4 lanes in Zephyr Hills,
Yeah.
which you're asking for. To me, they're equally important. But if you do downtown quicker to get more people out to go toward Hillsborough County on 301, you're going to be backlogged because it's still 2 lanes.
Right.
So unless you do that part to 56 onto the county line, unless you get that done, it just backlogs. So if you do that one first and then the other one follow right behind it, it'll be open, so the traffic will never be held back up. It would flow. So,
And keep in mind, we're balancing those big projects. 52 will not be left behind, 301 will not be left behind. We're still working on that. These are projects that have to get done. The widening has to get done, right?
But what about 54 and 41?
54, 41 is our number 1 priority right now.
And there's no money. There's not funded at all, right?
No, it's in PD&E currently right now. And
But is
that's
there funding for construction?
We're working on that with FDOT. And that's what I'm saying, that will remain number 1.
but
That
they're in
one- that won't
design,
change.
right? They're in design?
PD&E,
Yeah.
PD&E. Design's coming shortly.
And you said you're going to be meeting with us individually?
Yes, yep.
So we'll get a peek at the priority list using this methodology?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But we wanted to bring the methodology to you first, review the criteria, and then go back and then make the draft list.
All right. Johnny, did we interrupt your?
Nope, that's fine. It's a good
Your
discussion.
presentation?
I was excited
did,
to
but-
bring this because this is important. I will reiterate what Tania said. This This is based on 2 years of experience scoring the projects. And these proposed changes are meant to speed the process along. For some of the larger projects, it just takes time. So this is not going to leave any projects behind, but this is a way to speed up the process for some of the smaller projects. So one more slide very quickly. We are endeavoring to continue to review and update the criteria scoring data. We are producing a lot of data sets right now. We've got the comprehensive plan update going on, and we've also got the long-range transportation plan update going on simultaneously. So we're producing a lot of data right now, and one reason that we would like to modernize this process is so we can easily incorporate that new data. And another criteria that we want to continually update is our activity centers. Right now, our activity centers are schools, some of the major shopping areas, community centers, parks. We want to continue to make sure we're updating that data set as we're building more schools, as economic development is a focus. We have more employment areas. So that's just something we're going to continue to update and review annually. We also want to have adaptable criteria for other future goals and focus areas of the county as the county continues to grow in population and employment. So we had a lot of discussion. Are there any other comments or questions?
Any comments? None, and I know this is something you need an approval on. And the one thing, I think it isn't a bad idea to put how long or what year that the project was placed on the list. I think that's, you know, a good thing to know, at least to have on the list, so.
Yes, you will see that in the draft law this year.
Very
We'll do
good,
that.
thank you. All right.
Second.
Have a motion for approval and a second.
Presentation.
You say you do need a,
We do, yes. The methodology was adopted originally in February of 2022. So we want, as we update the methodology, we want to
approval of the updates?
get your approval.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.
All right, FDOT letter of support for 52.
Morning, you probably heard this yesterday, but I'm here asking for your approval in a letter of support to DOT for the SR 52 Rural Safety and Economic Mobility Grant. This grant will help support the completion of 52, which I think that in our previous discussion, we were very excited about. So if you can move to approve.
I have some questions
Yes,
for Secretary
go
Quinn.
ahead. All right.
I sent him some photos.
It's
So-
great to hear.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It says here, I saw the letter, I was reading it, about the underpass for the animals. But you know, I'm trying very hard to include humans as animals. I just, you know, really want us to make that just a little wider and a little higher, so we can have pedestrians go under as well, rather than coming back and asking for a pedestrian overpass.
Yeah, and so we can continue, obviously, to discuss it. It's a little different. A pedestrian overpass requires a lot more walls and height and
Pedestrian
accommodations.
overpass or underpass?
It's an underpass.
Well, an underpass, you know, most of the wildlife accommodations are, you know, they don't meet the same standards as if people were going through it.
Right.
And the adjacent property owners, you know, you're gonna have big walls along their property if you have to raise it high enough to meet ADA requirements and those sorts of things. Whereas if you're just providing an area for wildlife to get through, it doesn't need to be nearly as big or tall or wide. And so it's a different, but we can certainly talk further about it.
How many inches higher does it need to be?
I'm not sure what the requirement.
Well,
It is
y'all
quite a
require an
bit.
8 foot, that's something that you require, right? That's not, there are underpasses, under highways all over the country that are not 8 feet, because I've been under them.
If they're new, I doubt that they would build them new. I know in some older places, they might have some ones that are like that and they're just never been
They have
improved, but
new rules.
wouldn't build the new ones. There is criteria for instance, you don't want somebody riding a bike to hit their head on the overpass when they're going, underneath it, whereas, a raccoon or something will figure its way through it.
Even
So,
deer.
are you looking that up? Tina, do you have any experience in that?
In the area where this underpass is located is right there near 4G Ranch.
Right.
And
It's a swamp
there's a
on
lot of
both sides.
wildlife around there and a lot of swamp area
Yeah,
in that area.
I don't wanna
So
stop the wildlife.
You won't find many pedestrians be crossing in that area.
No, if the trail, if it's a place where we could put an underpass, I think it makes a lot of sense. There's another place, because you and I have talked about this, and you said how people don't want, of course, we're not talking about an overpass like we have on 19 where you need a truck to go under.
But because
I
of the
dropped-
height, you're gonna be asking for more money and all, because you're gonna have to build up the foundation.
Yeah, but you know how
of the road.
much a pedestrian overpass is? It's $20 million. To go up, how many more inches?
I'm still waiting on the exact number.
So
Gosh, I've been asking for this for a
it's really
year.
not, I mean, with a animal crossing, you basically just put a culvert in.
But can't you put a,
Large culvert, yeah.
Yeah, when you put in so you're raising it up for the clearance underneath, and then you have to raise it because you're gonna put a bigger, whether it's a structure or a bigger culvert. And then on top of that, you put the road. What happens is the property's adjacent, that, if you own that property, you pretty much have flush to the right of way. You end up having to put walls in, and those walls have to extend out to, bring the vertical curve of the road down. And so now your property owner has a big wall in front of their property, and most of the time they respond that they don't really want that. It doesn't allow them access in those areas, and it could be considered an eyesore if they're developing it.
I thought we were putting this wildlife crossing in the wildlife corridor, which is a swamp on one side and a swamp on the other.
This is pretty close. So it's.
Yeah, so there's no blocking of.
A lot of deer in
everything,
this
But
particular
I'm waiting
area.
to hear how many more
cross.
inches higher it is. I'm just,
And we may not be able to get that right away. I don't know whether, if you want to come up, it's.
I had dinner with Secretary Prasad the other day, and he's going to try and help me with this. He said it made great sense that it's so much cheaper for the public to do it this way than to put an overpass.
Well, that assumes we would put an overpass there.
Not there, but it would be further down the road. But this is the Orange Belt Trail coming across.
So one of them, it's a 7x10 opening, but by the time you put in sidewalk base, everything, so like you actually could, because right now it's just a mud bottom, right? It's like an open bottom box.
So you can put asphalt.
Yeah, see, by the time you put asphalt base, everything, and build it up, you need to raise the profile there about 3 feet. And then the other one, we need to raise the profile about 4 feet. And so when you talk about raising the profile of the road 4 feet, that goes back. We can get an estimate on what the cost would be, but I know that just to add the sidewalk on the south side is about a $10 million delta for one of the projects. So when you kind of put all this together, I mean, we'll get an exact number, but you're probably talking 20 million plus to add the sidewalk and raise the profile.
Metro put an underpass in Esplanade, what's the name of that project that they did with the lagoon? Epperson. That there's one going under overpass, on overpass.
Yeah.
Well, we can ask them, how much they paid for that. But and I also want to talk to you about the sidewalks.
Swampy area though.
Can you put up the map, the Google Earth on the sidewalks? So we were looking at it, and we've determined that, and this segment is from 52 to, Suncoast, what? Yeah, 41, okay. So at the intersection of 41 and 52, let me pull it up here, is, at that one corner is a mitigation piece of land, right? That's the one we were talking about taking. So we would, for the sidewalk there, it's probable that we could come onto their property with the sidewalk, maybe? We're looking at buying that and putting it into our program, the E-Lamp.
Yeah, I think, well, on 52, if you remember, we advanced that project.
About 2 years, I think.
And part of the way we were able to do that was the county had agreed to, as land develops, on the one side, they would build a sidewalk with the developments. And so it cut the cost of the project down and allowed us to move the project forward. You might ask, why are we going after a grant if we already have it funded, right? Well, I can tell you, and I'm sure the county sees the same thing, and the city's costs have gone up. And when we programmed the projects out 5 years ago with the inflation expectations, they've been higher. And so we're just looking for more opportunities to keep filling the holes that pop up every time we see the bids coming in higher. And so it's really, we're looking if we can get some federal money to help that. The other thing this year, and while I'm up here, I might as well make my pitch again, but appropriations, earmarks, they're back to being taken out of the State Transportation Trust Fund. For 2 years there, it was like a free-for-all because it was coming out of general revenue. And you saw, and Pasco County got quite a bit, the Moffetts and other things, and that was good because it didn't come out of our money. It was new money for new improvements. This year, there was $250 million worth of earmarks that is coming out of our budget. And so I'm sure when they do an earmark, it doesn't say you get more money and here's what we want you to build. What they're saying is, hey, this wasn't on anybody's list, but now it's at the top of your list and you have to fund it. And so we have to go and find other money to move around to be able to fund those projects. So we're still working on that process now. We're going to try to find ways to do it as painlessly as possible, but we're just trying to stretch every dollar we can. So even when we say it's only going to be 10 million, 5 million, or whatever, I'm telling you, it's like fingers in the holes everywhere. We're trying to not add new holes. So when we push back on something that's an additional cost, it's not necessarily we don't think it's a good thing to do. It's like we're just trying to keep everything going.
So what I wanted to say was from just west of Aaron Cutoff, we have a development coming in there. It's a cement, I don't know, Jimmy Keys, Keys Concrete, he sold that. And they're putting a sidewalk in. You can see where there's like a little racetrack up there, just to the left of Aaron Cutoff. From there, all the way east, the developers will be putting in the sidewalk, so you don't need to program that. So what we're gonna need help with is in front of the Connor Preserve and that mitigation bank. And those are the two properties that are between 41 and where we're trying to go. I think that we could ask, Tina, I think we could ask, is Connor Preserve is part of Swiftmud? Can we see if we can put an at-grade sidewalk on their property and not, because what they're talking about doing for a sidewalk is an expensive proposition to come in and fill it in the swale, is that right?
Most
With
of
that
us would
wall?
have to fill in, we have to redo the ponds, we'd have to redo the drainage and,
Yeah, so I want to see if we can find a way to get that done in a little more creative way than doing it that way, just coming off your property, coming right behind it.
We're open to look at anything that would make sense.
Then we can take that savings and put it on the pedestrian underpass. But anyway, I wanted to let you know that I've been talking with our staff about getting with you about looking how we actually can put that sidewalk back in on the south side.
We can try, but by the same token, the answer may come back to be, we can do that, but what do you want to give up? What other project do you want to defer? Because our contingencies, I'm telling you, my contingencies have been eaten up by inflation primarily.
Yeah, ours too.
And so every dollar I got to find, it's no longer, okay, I can take it out of my reserve or my contingency. It's like, I got to find another project to move. So then it becomes what's more important, this or that? And that's the discussion and this is the right forum to have those kind of discussions.
So on the sidewalk on the north, or it's the multi-use trail on the north, I tried to do this when we extended State Road 56, but I know that my friend at Two Rivers had already kind of got the engineering going before Clark and I could really make any headway. But we wanted to meet with the landowners and see if they would consider donating 10, 15 feet of their right-of-way when it made sense, so that the multi-use trail wasn't smushed up against the road, but it could come back a little bit. So I'm going to go to 4G and ask that same thing, and, you know, I was with Heinz yesterday, I could have asked them, but I'd like to see if I can get that multi-use, get a little more land donated, so it's not just a straight shot
Talking about on the
next to your
north
road,
side?
on the north side. Is it too late for that?
Well, where are we at now? Is it too late in our process? I know we've been in design, so,
Yeah.
and I don't know if we'd have to redo the PD&E with that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, on 52, you're not gonna have the same issue yet on 56. So 52, the trail is not right on the edge of pavement. It's already set back. Actually, I think it's on the backside of the drainage
Oh, nice.
swale. So, I mean, you're not gonna have that issue on the north side of 52. And
Great.
the south side of 52, the biggest thing is the grade. You know, everything goes north-south there, the grade. So you're bucking grade. The further south you go with the sidewalk, you know, even on the properties. But that was, just so you know, I mean, that was kind of the agreement with the county back when this.
They don't, I
project
can't
came
find
to be.
anyone who remembers that, so they didn't
Well,
hold anyone to it, which
Yeah,
is
well, I
a
mean, I'll just
problem.
tell you, I mean, that's. there's
Not
been-
that I don't doubt you, just
There's
that,
been meetings that I've
Yeah.
been in with a lot of
Yeah.
folks, and that's why there's a multi-use trail on the north side, and basically what you're talking about doing is exactly what was always contemplated, was as the developers came in, reserve the right of way for the sidewalk, and put the sidewalk on the south
well, they're
side.
all on notice now.
That's fair, that's fine.
But, you know.
But
in-
it's
in
too late for a lot of
4G,
it.
You're actually building a lot of drainage for 4G right up in front of the project they're talking about building. And so you have dirt and all that you'll be able to use there for that roadway. But all that's good, all that's working. And it was great to hear him call me the other day to get the letter, and Brian called me and says, hey, we need a letter of support, so we'll move this project up. What I told the board yesterday, oh yeah, let's do that right away. So we actually had it going before we were finishing our morning session. The letter was on the way, so.
We appreciate the support.
But we support that fully, and putting it in one project rather than two just speeds the process for everybody, so. It's a good project.
I did hear that there might be more money in the state budget next year for that rural project that the governor funded how we got 301. I heard there's gonna be a big bump in that.
Could be, I mean, all that will play out, I'm sure, over the next year.
Commissioner Mariano had a question, I think.
Thank you.
And I'll just touch on, and we appreciate you coming to give us the leadership and the direction as far as the earmarks go. So from now on, any earmarks we put in is like really throwing away your plan and going to kill anything else to get that even project done for 2 years after if it gets vetoed at all. So we need to stay away from transportation. Got that. On this 52 project, Commissioner Starkey, just so you know, years ago, I was thinking we should go in the Conner Preserve to go build a sidewalk through.
Yeah.
But there was a push from the resident commissioner from District 1 to actually go to the north, and he had things worked out to go along that way. And I didn't know about the topographical issues, but it makes sense. So I know that was looked at from before, but. I
Well,
think
let's try it again.
Again, the logic may
We're
not be
we're
there
not
for
gonna
us.
do anything to hold up the project.
No.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, that the
I'm trying
the logic may not be that,
Money, though.
again, so it's been looked. But
Something we could build.
County Line Road is a project we're looking for funding still for?
Yeah, we're still looking, and we're continuing to work on strategies for it. I know what my team's told me is that one thing that would help is if the MPO wanted to prioritize it higher, that it might be easier to find some of the funding. But that's certainly a decision you have to make. You have a lot of projects. Where does it fall on your priority list? I think it's fallen a little higher in the Hernando list than it has in the Pasco list.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we're going to get the help, we definitely move it up. That's another project been sitting for a long time. When I started 20 years ago, it was ranked 13, 14. It's still ranked probably 13, 14. So now that Hernando's finally pushing, because they had backed away from it, which is why we backed away from it, but with everything going forward, with Senator Ignolia going, Representative Holcomb going, they all wanted to go, I think it's best if we move it up to get further cooperation from them for other projects we want to get done as well, for other things legislatively coming up.
See what we can do to do that.
Well, I don't know how many
think it's
things we
coming up
can
next
keep
meeting,
moving
right?
up, because I don't know when we're gonna talk about tower, but are we talking about that today? Or to move up?
Well, and let's get back on the agenda because I know that's a letter of support for 52.
All right, thank you,
so-
Secretary.
Thank you.
Secretary, come back.
Um,
Come back.
By the way, just to mention, I think they also think the County Line Road might be a good grant application, so we'll talk to staff about maybe there's a
Oh,
federal
okay.
grant or something.
Well,
that
we'll
could-
be in support, yeah. We'll help you in that. But I'd like to thank you for the use of Justin helping me out with the 301 down there with the Tropical Acres Park that's there, and tweaking the lights on both ends at 56 and back to Chauncey helped tremendously. I had a meeting out there with the fire chief after that, and the traffic was able to move very, very well for considering all the construction, all that's going on there. But it helped clear all that up. It's been very good, very good.
I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear they're doing stuff without even telling me about it, so I'm glad they're taking care of business.
Well, I know that's his job, and I figured he had more time to do that job than you did. So I started calling Justin.
No,
I wear him out, so.
You call him or you call me, you'll get the same response, so.
Well, I understand that, but I just
I
figured
know,
you're
I know,
busier
I'm
than
glad,
he is.
I'm glad that they're taking, because as you can imagine, you do too. It's nice when you find stuff that's happening, good stuff happening that somebody else took care of, and
Oh, yeah.
you're thanking me, but they're the guys that helped you on that
Well,
one, so.
I thank you for the use of him. so-
All right.
Okay.
I have two more
Appreciate
things.
that.
But it really helps out, and that's helped out in that project. One of the things, we helped out, the gentleman at the GIF store where we're doing the roundabout. You talked to him or heard from him any lately, because they actually cut all the roads down or shut them down around the Jiffy that he got no business for a while there. And it's hurting his business, so I didn't know if they had worked through that or not, but that's something to look into
Okay.
on that roundabout there in San Antonio, so.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that roundabout.
Okay.
Commissioner
I had two more things.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness, let me think what it was. Oh, yeah, I had a meeting this week with the Turnpike folks, with Tania, and apparently there was a misunderstanding about our bike ped overpass at 54 in the Suncoast. So I don't know if you want to ask them about it, or, inform the board here.
I got clarity. I received clarity from our Transportation Engineering Department. The overpasses are not tied with the FTE project. They are going to be led in December of '25. They're going to be built separately from the overchanges. So it is going to move forward without
Why are
FTE.
we not going ahead and letting it if we have the money? What are we waiting on?
Because we have to wait and see until the end of June where FTE is going to build the interchange.
FTE?
Florida Turnpike Enterprise that you met with.
Enterprise, okay.
Correct.
All right, here comes Justin.
But there's no hold.
Because we thought we had to wait for the Turnpike to build that interchange, which they were telling me is years away.
No,
So-
there's a misunderstanding. So, DOT Turnpike, we work hand in hand. We're really the same family. And Turnpike's going through a PD&E right now, looking at widening
Right.
the Suncoast. And so all they approached us about was, hey, we're working on the design there, what the interchange will look like, and they were concerned that if we put the ped overpass where we had it, that it would cause problems in the future with the interchange. So really, it's just an efficiency thing. And we're actually reaching out to Tallahassee now to see if we can go design build on that ped overpass to get it out the door even faster. So hopefully, but if we can get that approved and then the slight, just waiting for the PD&E concept to be finalized, we'll be on the original schedule that we had. So it's a good thing. It's making sure that we don't build a ped overpass and then 10 years later
No,
they
we
come
don't wanna
back and
tear it
go,
down.
they got to tear it down
Yeah.
and move it. So it's a good thing.
Okay, and I know I had a second thing, but I totally forgot what it was. I should have
You should have
wrote a note.
Should have wrote
I
yourself
know
a
there
note.
was two.
So with this item 6, we are looking for approval from
Can't
the.
remember what my second one was.
Did you?
I did, but I
She
can't remember
forgot
what it was.
I move approval.
No.
Have a motion and a second for approval
can't
of
remember what it was.
of this item. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed,
Aye.
like sign? Motion passes, thank you. And when she remembers it, we'll find out, so. All right, we have 2 presentations. Those were all the action items, Tanaya, right? Okay. Okay, thank you. Item 7 is Innovate Pasco 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. Scott?
Oh, I just remembered what it was, and it's just a thank you. Your staff came and presented at the board meeting Wednesday on Kogan grass. I drove 52 with your staff. We had a great time. We even pulled out a tropical soda apple over in by Prospect, and I just wanted to thank you. They did a great job, and our staff learned a lot from your staff. So, yeah, thank you.
Good. Scott, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Board. The MPO's Long Range Transportation Plan Update Team has continued to be very active in the plan update process and has made much progress over the last 2 months. Among the numerous activities that have occurred, the team has engaged with community, civic, and other stakeholder groups to obtain their input into the county's transportation needs. The team has finalized the plan's goals and objectives. We have developed the plan's transportation revenue forecast up to 2050. And the team has begun analyzing the travel demand model output data up to 2050 to identify roadway capacity deficiencies. Ms. Allison Flewitt with Kimley Horn & Associates joins us today to provide additional details on the plan's development and to give us an overview on the methodology and inputs that will be used for developing the list of transportation improvement projects to be included in the plan. Allison?
Thank you all. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you today. As Scott said, I'll be giving you an update of some of the progress that we've made on the plan's development since the last time we had the opportunity to speak to this group, and then also telling you about some of our upcoming next steps. So today I'll just give you a quick update on some of our existing conditions as well as the summary from our first round of public engagement. But we'll be focusing more of our time on recapping some of the things that go into the development of our transportation needs, including our goals and objectives and the overall process for that needs plan development. First, our project update. Just a brief snapshot of what we see from kind of the major task items from our plan development. We have completed all of that kind of initial data gathering, visioning, goals, objectives, and performance measurement setting. And we're well into the development of our needs plan, as well as starting to think about some of the key next steps, such as project prioritization, and even developing the basis of our financial constraints, which includes our revenue assumptions, because this will obviously be a financially constrained plan. We have a couple of other major things that are upcoming, and I'll talk about those a little bit more, but that does include a second major round of public involvement that's going to be happening here in the month of April. When we had the chance to speak to you all last, we had begun the process of developing our existing conditions, but had not yet concluded the preparation of that documentation and gathering all of our information. And so I did just want to provide a little bit of a summary of what that ended up looking like and where you can go to find more information. Our existing conditions summary was incredibly helpful for us to learn more about some of the conditions at a glance. As you all know, this is a routinely updated plan. We do this every 5 years, but this is an incredibly high growth area with a lot of changes that we see happening from the past 5 years to now, and that we see forecasted for the future as well. So we were taking a look at that, both kind of as an overall snapshot, but also thinking about the state of our population, looking at those population growth numbers, kind of our demographic and income breakdowns, our commuting trends and patterns, obviously very important for us as we start to think about where those needs are going to continue to arise, and then focusing in on our state of the transportation system, which we look at from all of the perspectives of all of our different travel modes. So we also have been actively engaged in reaching out to the public, and this speaks to some of the earlier agenda items in today's meeting. This is something that I think I'd like to commend staff for their very active participation in identifying groups, getting us out in front of groups, and helping to publicize this process We felt very good about this, even with a fairly quick schedule that we're adhering to as a part of this long-range transportation plan development, at the success that we've seen in being able to connect with stakeholders, with community groups throughout this process, as well as the general public. So we have already completed quite a few of our engagement rounds and connecting in with some of our stakeholder groups. Some of that is actually ongoing. We had a meeting just yesterday in Zephyr Hills, and we have some additional ongoing meetings next week with some stakeholder and community groups, and then a larger set of meetings that I'll talk about a little bit further later in the month. But when we talked to you all last, we had our online survey open for input at that point in time, but we hadn't received all of our results. So I did want to just recap where things ended up landing with that first round of engagement. We had over 1,100 participants in our online survey, and I can say that as a person that has the opportunity to do this type of planning in communities all over the country, we were incredibly pleased with the level of participation that we were able to get as a part of this. It can be challenging to get feedback on a long-range transportation plan because it's not something that feels imminent to folks. So we, again, I'd like to just thank the staff for their efforts in publicizing this, getting the word out, and also to you all to pushing this out to your constituents, because that's definitely where we saw the benefit of that impact and then seeing the reflection in that participation. And that gives us a lot of really good information to start to understand over 16,000 individual data points on things like travel preferences, on transportation goals. This is where we started to reach out to members of the public about, what's going to be most important to them. And you can see here, this is actually telling us both in terms of the frequency of how often a goal was ranked in the top 5 and also the intensity. So when it was ranked in the top 5, how high up was it? You can see, obviously, the reduction of congestion is something that's really important to our respondents, the maintenance of roadways, and also safety. But you actually see a fairly high emphasis being placed on many of our different goals, and we expect that. All of the goals are in there for a reason, and we're going to carry those forward and consider them. We also wanted to talk to our members of the public about transportation funding options. And this is helpful for us to just get a sense from people about where they might like to see some funding resources placed. Now, we know we always have to counterbalance this when we get into the needs identification and the development of our cost feasible plan with some of the realities that the scale of projects for, let's say, a roadway project compared to a sidewalk project or multi-use plan or path are going to be pretty different. So we always take that into account. But it does help us to understand that there is a balance and a desire being sought by members of the public out there to look certainly at roadway capacity and maintenance, but also to look at some of those other travel modes out in the network. I know I kind of ran through those pretty quickly, but the great news is that that's all up on the project website. So you can view the existing conditions report in its entirety, as well as the summary from our first round of engagement, if you want to read a little bit more about either one of those. But I did want to bring us into our goals and objectives. I mentioned that that was kind of an initial question that we asked the public in our first round. But this was really something that we wanted to take some of the feedback that we were hearing at that high level. We also wanted to take information from your previous plan, because obviously that's a great starting point. We're not starting from scratch when we do this type of a thing. And then also the guidance that we get from the federal government, since this is a federally required planning effort, and also from the state. All of those things need to be brought in together to help us understand where we should be placing our emphasis in our goals and objectives. So that's where we landed with the 7 goals that you see here. And each one of these, accessibility and equity, communities, economy, environment, infrastructure, mobility, and safety and security, has additional detail provided to it with a corresponding objective there. And we're going to be looking at all of those as we move into project prioritization later on, so that we can kind of directly go back and say, here's how we address some of those goals that were established very early in our planning process. You can see these do run beyond just traditional transportation metrics to cover a little bit more broadly things like the economy, environment, which also speaks to some of the things that we're being asked to respond to now at their federal level. So all of this kind of helps set the stage for where we are right now, which is the development of our needs plan. Our needs plan is nothing more than our recommendations set that we are putting together for the long-range transportation plan. And this is our opportunity to essentially look at the previous planning efforts that have already been conducted, updated data. You've heard mention of this in some of the presentations earlier today, but there is newer data that we have access to that we're able to take advantage of in the needs plan development process. And we have different needs plans for our roadways, for our independent bicycle and pedestrian projects, and for our transit plan as well. So for all of those, you can see we're bringing in public feedback. That's obviously a consideration for each one of them. And then we're also bringing in quantitative data where that's available for us. So just to kind of show all of those things kind of together, we start always by looking at our existing and committed network. And so we worked with county staff, we worked with the MPO very extensively to be sure we had a good handle on exactly what we needed to be representing, both from the state transportation improvement program, but also from our capital improvement program, bringing all of that together. From a roadway perspective, we do have access to the regional travel demand model. That's something that's being updated right now. So we've worked with the folks that are doing that to bring in kind of the newest data, identify future deficiencies, reviewing those existing plans, and obviously what we get from our stakeholders. And then ultimately, project prioritization will kind of come into the fold as well. Now, something just for clarification, the needs plan is not an all-encompassing thing. So when we talk about what the needs plan looks like in the vein of a long-range transportation plan, we are not talking about things like bridges or resurfacing projects, existing sidewalks, or paving. Because those are things that are being handled in different ways. They're not done exactly through the long-range transportation plan. They're kind of handled through other funding mechanisms. Also, we're not going to be looking at relitigating any funded project that's already out there. If a project has been obligated for funding, that's something we want to acknowledge as already having been noted as a priority and carry that forward. And then certainly any projects that are completed or underway. So as we kind of turn the page here, I think that one of our big questions that we'll be bringing out to the public and to you all is understanding what else we should be considering in developing the needs plan, whether that is going to be specific facilities that folks may be identifying and say, hey, you know, I'd like you to consider adding this into the recommendations that maybe you're not showing right now, or things that we may even want to adjust as not being as aggressive as they're being shown in our needs. So that's the question that we're going to be bringing to the public as we continue with our outreach in April. Speaking of which, we'll talk about our next steps here. So once we have that needs plan identified, it's important for us to then move into a project prioritization process. We've talked a good bit about prioritization today within the context of your LOP, which is obviously that near-term list of priority projects that you're submitting to the Florida DOT. We're going to be undertaking a similar process here because that goes into our cost feasible plan, our constrained plan, particularly for our roadways, which has to have kind of that prioritization backing it, and then keying off of that anticipated funding availability. I mentioned some of our upcoming workshops a couple of times. I just want to note those once more for everybody. We have 2 workshops in 2 weeks. One on the 23rd in Land O'Lakes and another on the 24th in Zephyr Hills. There's information obviously about those on the project website as well. To go along with those in-person engagement opportunities, we will have an online survey that is going to be made available covering pretty much the same thing. That's what we did in the first round of engagement. So it gives people the opportunity either to come in person and talk to us or do something really similar online as well. We're also going to continue to engage with those civic groups and get back with our equity focus group in mid-May. So our upcoming deliverable, the next thing you'll see from us as a part of these workshops will be our needs plan, and we'll be moving quickly from there on into our prioritized and cost-feasible plan. So with that, I appreciate y'all letting me have a chance for an update, and happy to offer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions? The only thing I would ask is that could you send, you said that there was still online participation available right now on the website. Could we get that link sent to all of us so we can kind of try and get it out to, I'd like to get it to our PIO at the city for sure, so. Do we
Yeah,
ha-
absolutely. That online survey is going to be coming out really in conjunction with our next round, and we'd definitely love
Okay,
for
yes.
you all to have that.
Just forward it so we can try and get it out to as many people as we can.
Thank you.
And I do thank you because this is important. It's 2050. It's hard to believe we're planning that far out, but I'm trying to think in my mind what the drive from Zephyr Hills to Newport Richey is going to be like in 2050. So I hope I don't have to drive, you know. I won't be here. So. Okay, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So let's see, Scott is up again, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. The transportation improvement modification.
Before I jump into this, just to follow up on what Allison just shared with you, I'll just give another quick plug to the two upcoming public workshop-style meetings. The first meeting will be held at the Heritage Lake Community Center in Land of Lakes on April the 23rd from 5 to 7 p.m. And that is an open house style workshop for the public. If any of you, yes,
Heritage Lakes is in Trinity. So,
pardon me? Heritage Lake.
oh, Heritage Springs is in Trinity. Okay, Heritage Lake. Where's Heritage Lake?
It is at the Heritage Lake Community Center. It's about 3 miles north of State Route 54 on US 41, the left-hand side. And then the next day, there will be another public workshop-style meeting in the Zephyr Hills area at the Alice Hall Community Center on 5th Avenue from 5 to 7 p.m. So please publicize those, and if you can make either one of those meetings, we'd love to see you there. This item before you is simply a minor administrative item. The MPO staff were required to perform a minor administrative modification to the MPO's Transportation Improvement Program in conjunction with the PL tip, with the PL de-obligation that Lori shared with you earlier. In the same amount, there is no action required on this item. We just are bringing it to you by way of information. Are there any questions about it? The details are in your agenda packet.
Any questions for Scott? None? Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. All right. Is there anything else we have for the meeting today? No? Any comment from the MPO? I do want to say one thing. I rode the Pasco County buses for the very first time a couple weeks ago. And we rode them with our planning staff because we were trying to look at how we can improve and allocate some dollars for shelters, bus shelters in Zephyr Hills. The bus was very clean. The drivers were great. It was a very good experience. And the older I get and the more that I go to these different towns, these urban centers, I think part of our strategy has to be improving the mass transportation system. So if you haven't done it, get on it and just check it out one day, because it's very enlightening. We saw some issues that we have to try and correct too with some mid-block crossings and things. So, but I encourage you to, because I think we're going to have to try and get people out of their cars. So anyway, nothing else for the meeting? Nothing else from the staff? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pasco County waterways and wildlife depend on you to keep them healthy. Excess fertilizer, grass clippings, trash, oils, and pet waste wash into gutters and storm drains when it rains. Stormwater carries these pollutants directly into our lakes and rivers, creating an unhealthy environment for fish, waterfowl, and other aquatic animals. Storm drains are meant for clean rainwater. Most other discharges are illegal. If you suspect an illicit discharge, please contact Pasco County Department of Public Works at 727-834-3611.
We want to welcome you to the Human Services Collaboration Station. The Collaboration Station is basically an idea of bringing community partners together with the Human Services team through the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners so we can serve the citizens in one hub or one facet to really create the connectivity between our partners and our not-for-profits in the community, as well as our case managers and the work that they do. Our community partners play a massive role in serving our community. They conduct certain services that we don't have funding for or that they have specific funding for.
Our Human Services, I feel, is the heartbeat of the Public Services branch. They provide case management and connect resources to our citizens in need. So having this collaboration station and bringing in community partners is going to make it so much easier for them to connect those services right here on the spot.
So I think that collaboration station really fills a good void, right? And we're able to bring everyone together to provide the needs for all the folks in the community. So I think it's a great idea and a fantastic thing, and I'm glad we were able to do it.
Thank you to the team.